This is the most important election in the history of our country. I really believe that.
This is a life-changing election.
And yet, despite all of our greatness as a nation, everything we have achieved is now in danger. This is the most important election in the history of our country.
The election in 2020, without hyperbole, is going to be the most important election this country has undergone.
We've heard a lot of that kind of talk, but for clarification, let's bring in two best-selling authors and historians, Doug Wead and Craig Shirley. Gentlemen, welcome to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Doug, we're going to start with you. Of course, this election is important. Every election is very important. Is this the most important ever?
Well, I think it is, and I'll bet you Craig disagrees with me on that because we've had some other real important elections. But I believe it is because I spent 40 years in the bosom of establishment politics with Gerald Ford and the Bush family, and I've come to see the power of the multinational globalism and what it can do. And if Joe Biden's elected, there we go. It will be back to regulations and increased power from the monopolies and the destruction of small business.
It's a great answer. Craig, your response?
Well, this is where Doug and I diverge. I would not say this is the most important election of our lifetime or even in the history of the country. The election of 1800 was a decisive between which way the government would go. The election of 1860 was whether or not the country would be split or in a civil war, whether or not it would let the South go. The election of, in my lifetime, the election of 1980 is the most important election. It's probably all of ours.
Doug, going to go to you. Which party do you think this election is most important to? Who has the most to lose here?
Oh, I think the Republicans have a lot to lose here. Yes. You know, you're seeing a lot of television right now where they say the Republican Party is split. It's not. It's a total fake news. Your viewers can Google the Republican Party's support of Donald Trump, and they'll see that 98% of the Republicans support Trump, while only 92% of Democrats support Biden. So it's solid. When you see a story of a senator who's supporting Biden, he's out of touch with the Republican Party, not the other way around. So, I see this as extremely important for the Republicans, for them to survive what the national media is trying to do to them.
Have you seen a time that you can recall where everything was this crazy and we were so polarized between the parties? I mean, you can't even have a conversation without a fist fight breaking out sometimes, it seems.
Many elections contain a lot of vitriol, a lot of hate, a lot of overblown rhetoric. This is a bad election. I don't disagree with you, but many elections have been bad. Yeah,
Doug, what do you think? Has it ever been this bad?
Well, yes, the Civil War, 500,000 people died. And
sure.
In 1968, 140 cities, neighborhoods burned to the ground. I lived in South Bend, Indiana that year, and entire neighborhoods in South Bend burned to the ground. So it was bad. There were tanks on the street in Washington, D.C., and the best barometer is Julie Nixon would walk across Smith campus and they'd spit on her. Tiffany Trump can walk across a Georgetown Law and nobody touches her. They leave her alone. So we've seen it a little bit worse than this.
That's interesting. These conventions we had this year, these weird COVID conventions, the Republicans, I think, did it a little bit better. But is that going to change anything? Does that hurt, I guess, motivation? Does that do anything?
No, I think they're great theater, and still things can happen. It's true almost everything's decided before you get there because it's so calculated, but they need that point to bring everything together. They need that deadline. So those deadlines, if you call them that, will remain, I think. And in that sense, they'll still have their function. They're the legal authorization of who the candidates are.
Guys, I love the history of this. I love hearing that it's been crazier than it is right now because a lot of people, I think, feel like the world's coming to an end. So thank you so much for the perspective. That's what we have you for, and you guys are great at it. We appreciate it. Have a nice week.
Subscribe to this channel and hit the little bell so you get these YouTubes and messages. I've been censored continually, so it seems to be the only way to be able to get through. I believe in free speech. I want to hear from you.